Hey y'all, Jamie here. Proud 55-year-old trans woman from New Orleans. So, where last I left off, fair warning, trigger warning. If you have a weak constitution towards severe child abuse stories, don't listen. Um, yeah. So, growing up a trans kid in a MAGA family, where last I left off. Um, my stepfather had kidnapped me and my little sisters, and he had taken us back to our old house where he sexually assaulted me many, many times. Um, and he put a gun in my mouth, and he told me that he was going to shoot me through the roof of my mouth if my mother did not call to say she would take him back. And then he shot himself instead. Shot himself in the chest. Supposedly missed his heart by like a quarter of an inch. Um, yeah. I walked back to the master bedroom, and at the foot of the bed, his hand was reaching up and he was gasping and he was begging me for help, you know. And, listen, I'm a 6-year-old kid, okay? I'm a 6-year-old child who has called this man daddy mainly too, along with my real father. I'd called this man daddy like since I could talk almost, you know? So I called the operator. I picked up the phone. I didn't know about 911. I don't even know if we had 911 in those days. I don't think they did. Anyway, I picked up the phone and I called zero. And I told the operator what was happening. The operator connected me to the fire department, who connected me to the medical emergencies, who, you know, police, you name it. Um, and so I went into the living room and I sat with my sisters and I pulled them to me. You know, we were sitting in front of the sofa on the floor behind the coffee table, okay? And we are sitting there and I'm cuddling them up to me. You know, by this point, they've woken up. They know something's going on. They're both very, very young. You know, I'm 6, so my sister Daphne was 3 and Deanne would have been 2. So, you know, they were babies. I was a baby. Fuck, they were babies. So we're sitting there and it's not long before we hear sirens and there's blue and red lights flashing through the windows. You can see through the curtains coming into the living room. And they're banging on the door, and my sisters started screaming. And instead of getting up to answer the door, I just grabbed them and held them closer to me. And, you know, there was an axe that came through the front door, and it was the fire department. They came through the front door with an axe. My sisters were screaming. I'm screaming at this point. They wheeled Jerry Lynn. I just remember them wheeling Jerry Lynn out, you know, my stepfather. And I remember the blood, you know, and then my mother came from the hospital. She had been in the hospital herself from him beating her up, okay? And she showed up on the scene where Jerry Lynn's sister in law, my step aunt, she was there trying to take me and my sisters to her house. And my mother showed up and she said, "Listen, bitch, nobody's taking my fucking kids anywhere." And she grabbed us and she put us in her car, you know. And my mother said that the only thing I kept repeating all the rest of that night was, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault." You know, who knows why kids think those things? Who knows why kids blame themselves for the things that evil adults do to that, you know, they do to them. You know, and I said this yesterday. I want to be really, really crystal clear. MAGA's not new. I say I come from a MAGA family because MAGA's not new. MAGA didn't start with Donald Trump. It didn't start with him. It started with the Civil War. It started even before that. It started the first time a white man saw somebody that looked different than him and said, get him. You know? Honestly, that's how far back the bitterness goes. And so, you know, these families have existed. Look, the McCarthy era, you know, after the communists and all that. These people have always existed in society where they want to demonize others. You know, and this is not even my people's first time at the rodeo of being demonized. This is only the first time that we're being threatened with extinction in the United States, okay? So, anyway, yes. I I was very traumatized by what happened with my stepfather. And my mother and I and my sisters, we moved around quite a bit, very, very quickly, and quick progression. We moved around a lot, trying to get away from him and avoid him, and going here and switching schools. And, well, I was switching schools. My little sisters weren't even old enough for school yet. And we ended up in this one little apartment, and it was a two-bedroom. My mother had the one bedroom, and then my sisters and I had the master bedroom, but my sisters had the bedroom part, and there was a walk-in closet. And my mother put a twin mattress on the floor in that walk-in closet, and that walk-in closet was my room. So one night I am at my father's. My biological father had visitation with me this one particular night, and I was spending the night with him at his place. And it's the middle of the night, and there's a call. Jerry Lynn's found us. He's found my mother and the girls at the apartment while I'm not there. And my father says, "Get dressed, we have to go now." We go to the apartment. Jerry Lynn came, high on drugs, drunk, Mr. Good white Christian man, good conservative man. Yeah, with good traditional all American values. Yeah. Yeah, he busted in the door. My mother thought that he crushed one of my little sisters with the door because she could have sworn that she was under the door when the door came down. So my mother's freaking out, thinking that one of her babies is underneath the front door. He comes in and he grabs a frying pan that was on the stove, and he bends the skillet, and then he throws a television set at my mother's head. And if y'all want to know what happens next, growing up in, with a good MAGA family, how they treat their trans kids, y'all know the routine. Be here tomorrow and I will too. I love you all. I love you all for watching, and I love you for the comments. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.